So this is a Fender American Original 60s Jazzmaster. In the original Fender lineup that Leo Fender designed, I always think this is one of the most interesting ones, given that he was such a great engineer, designer, yet this one didn't work for the audience he intended it. And in this video I want to show you how I think this can work really well as a jazz guitar and how some of its features really lend itself to that style. Amp-wise, I'm going through the Fender Tonemaster Twin, and you're hearing the guitar with the rhythm circuit activated with the volume and tone on full. First off, here's some lead tones. Here's some fingerstyle rhythm playing. And rhythm with the pick. And a bit more fingerstyle. This guitar really grabbed my attention when I saw the spec that, for a start, it had 9.5 radius rather than the vintage correct 7.25, which I don't get on with. That it retained all the original switching as Leo intended, and that it was also a nitro finish. And for some reason, I've always wanted one in blue, and I really like the look of blue with the tortoiseshell guard. Just a really cool look for me. The reviews I've read, the videos I've watched of other people playing this model, have always been very positive, and it left me wondering, you know, what went so wrong with this model back in 1958 that it didn't take off like the tele, like the strat. My understanding is that this guitar looks the way it does because it's designed to balance perfectly on your knee. If you think about, if I have my 355 or my arch top, you know, they're quite headstock heavy and they have a tendency to do this. So this guitar sits really well. I always thought originally this design, you know, and it probably is a bit too, but a result of kind of like the futuristic designs of the late 50s of the atomic age and the sort of things that were coming out of America. But obviously it's more basic than that, and just the fact, you know, jazz guitar players like to sit down. One thing I have read about his decision to build this guitar really fascinated me, and that was the story that, you know, I think Elvis had joined the army, I think Buddy Holly had died, and I think people in Fender were seriously worried about, you know, they got these guitars which people are using to play rock and roll might be on the way out. So what other music was popular at the time? Jazz was still very popular. Obviously all this changed with the British invasion in the 60s, but at that time he must have had to think on his feet in terms of trying to appeal to other markets in case that rock and roll did diminish as he thought it would, but obviously that never really happened. It is also often said that this guitar didn't take off because of Fender's location in the West Coast, and that most apparently of the jazz scenes were, obviously New York was the big centre for jazz, and that's where most of the players were based, so maybe as a result of that, it didn't get into many hands of jazz guitar players. So the big differences to the Strat and the Tele, obviously the body shape, and it's more Strat-like with being contoured here, the rhythm circuit, which I'll show you how it works, the pickups, and obviously this bridge, this vibrato system, which is different to the Strat. People often incorrectly think these are P90s in the kind of similarity in appearance. You know, the Gibson P90, the big plastic cover. This is really its own Fender thing, and I believe that the big difference really to Fender's other pickups, which are normally apparently taller and thinner in terms of the coils, they're flatter and wider, hence the the kind of appearance of an oversized pickup. And I think in some kind of versions of a Jazzmaster, they actually have the big housing with kind of like a Strat pickup inside, kind of a cheat's way of making it look like a Jazzmaster pickup. This winding of the coil like this, they refer to as pancake winding, and I think it's to help give a warmer sound, but without losing clarity. I've had this guitar for about a month now, just to sort of play it in and try and get used to it. And I think there's two main reasons why this guitar didn't take off for jazz players. I think one of the main reasons this guitar didn't take off is the appearance, maybe it being too modern and so far away from what jazz guitar players were used to. I think it's 1958 when the 335 comes in, Gibson 355. So, you know, jazz guitar players at that point when this guitar came in weren't even used to semis. They weren't used to something this thin, this small in terms of body. You know, they'd be used to arch tops with a 16 or 17 inch mount. The cutaway hadn't even been around that long. And obviously the instruments would have F-holes on, and if you really think about how the guitar changed from, you know, if you think of the first incarnations of the arch top in the 1920s, apart from the addition of the pickup, it really didn't change that much until the cutaway came in. Maybe it was just too much change. I think if you're used to a guitar with, you know, the depth of an arch top, this would feel quite alien, and you'd probably feel quite uncomfortable. I think the 335 and associated models are kind of a natural progression from the arch top, whereas this doesn't feel like a natural progression from an arch top. Not to say it can't do a really good job for jazz, but I can imagine at the time it would have just been a bit like head scratching, like, really? Am I going to use that for jazz? Maybe it was just too many design steps ahead for the jazz guitarists of the time. I also believe, which I think is quite an interesting fact about this model, I think it was the first guitar that Fender offered with a rosewood fretboard, which is pretty cool. And, you know, and that makes me think that was something they did specifically for the jazz market. If you imagine this with a maple fretboard like the other Fenders of the time, that again would be another thing that's, you know, very far removed from the offerings of Gibson and other companies. So I've obviously been through some of the tones, but let's just talk about the functionality of the controls. This guitar has two configurations. It has the lead circuit and the rhythm circuit. The lead circuit is your standard switching. So that's we've got a three-way switch here, we've got a volume, and we've got a tone control. So I've got a bridge pickup here, middle position, and neck. And that is your standard, typical what you'd get on a tele in terms of switching. This is what the lead circuit sounds like. Neck pickup, volume and tone on full. Roll off the tone a little bit. I'll have to do a comparison videos to my Telecasters, but I think that sounds really good. I think it's got a really nice mellow tone, but the clarity is there for the notes. Now, as soon as I switch this switch here towards me, then all of these controls here are obsolete. They're not working now. So I'm now entering the rhythm switch, which is to offer a darker, warmer sound. You've then got these two rollers. This is volume, this is tone. So let's compare the standard circuit to the rhythm circuit. If I play the same thing, here's the standard neck pickup and everything on full. If I play the same progression, if I go to the rhythm circuit, everything on full again. With some single lines, switch back, lead circuit. So it was lead circuit, rhythm circuit. You can hear it's that darker, jazzier sound. Let's try some octaves. rhythm circuit also, I believe also that the rhythm circuit is just using the neck pickup. The difference in sound you're hearing there between the rhythm circuit and the lead circuit, I believe, is achieved through the pots. With, I believe, the standard circuit having 1 meg pots and this rhythm circuit being 50k. I'm sure someone in the comments might correct me, but that's what I believe I've read about the difference between the two circuits. But at a flick of a switch for me on a Fender style guitar, this gives us a fuller, thicker, warmer sound, which, you know, for applications in jazz, I think is wonderful. You know, love it. Lovely. And I think a really cool usage for this also is the use of you can have a kill switch if you're using the rhythm circuit exclusively, and you've got the volume down then on the other circuit. If you just flick that switch, the guitar's silent. You could do it the other way around, of course, if you didn't want the rhythm circuit. If I had the volume up on my standard circuit, then I flick this. If the volume's down, it will kill the volume of the guitar. So that's useful. You could also obviously set up, and this is probably what I think Leo had it designed for, your rhythm guitar tone on the rhythm circuit. So could maybe roll that off a bit more. And then when I want lead, I could switch to the neck pickup, maybe with the tone off a bit. So that could work too, to go between rhythm and lead. This guitar came shipped with 10s, so I quickly put some 11s on because that's what I had. But I think it could probably benefit from 12s or maybe flat wounds that I think might be interesting to try. So I might try that in the future. If I do, I'll definitely make a video to compare to the sounds with regular strings that I've got on now. These are just Diodario 11s. There's two things I'm not overly enamoured with the guitar, but they're not deal breakers. With one being this white lining that you've got along the edge of the fretboard. It's really bright white, whereas the plastics here, they're kind of aged off-white. It would be nice, I think, if that matched. And the second thing really is the fact the neck has a gloss finish on the back. I prefer satin, but it's not a deal breaker for me. Now, the big complaints about this guitar come with this bridge. I reckon 9 out of 10 people that buy a Jazzmaster change the bridge with stuff like the Stray Trem or the Mastery bridge, I think. Now, the problem people often have is that the string moves off the saddle and pops out. For a month I've had this guitar, that hasn't happened. And I wonder whether, people that experience that, they don't have thick enough strings, but maybe also it's due to the style of music they're playing, and that if you're playing jazz, you're not whacking the guitar too hard, or certainly probably not typically, it's not going to happen. The vibrato system, I think, is actually, it's quite fun to use. I think it's, you can't go too far. Let's try a progression. I probably won't be using it too often, like the Bigsby on my 355, but it's nice to have the option sometimes, just for a little, you're playing you play a really nice chord, you might sometimes want a subtle bit of vibrato on. I probably won't use it too often, but occasionally you play a nice chord and you might want, or maybe on the last chord on a song. Viewers of my channel will know that I love teles for jazz. The traditional guitar, really, when it comes to playing jazz, is obviously something probably with F-holes, an arch top or a thin line. My preference isn't necessarily for Gibson or Fender style guitars, but what appeals to me about Fender style guitars is the ergonomics and the just general comfort and ease of playing. My two Gibson guitars, the L5 and the 355, have humbuckers, which I do like that sound. I love that sound. But there's something about single coils and the openness, transparency you get, the clarity of the chords. I don't know, it's just a bit more dimension to the sound, I think. I mean, you let me know what you think in the comments, but it's something I think definitely appeals to me in these style of guitars. I think the tones you can get out of them is wonderful. what do you think of from what you've heard today? Do you think the guitar players of the time were wrong to shun this as a potential jazz guitar? Anyway, you guys let me know what you think, but you'll be seeing a lot more of this guitar in my videos. I'm really enjoying practicing with it. I'm playing it alongside my other guitars, and it's definitely a good, different option amongst the other guitars that I've got.